and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today we're going to hear the first part of a two-part article. Today, by the way, is May 21st, and the article is entitled, A Library Where Books Are People. Our first paragraph, instead of just reading about historical events or psychological conditions, imagine being able to borrow a person who has actually experienced them. That is the concept behind the Human Library, created in 2000 by Ronnie Abergel, his brother Danny, and two colleagues. The Human Library has since spread from its origin in Copenhagen, Denmark, to more than 80 other countries.
At the heart of the Human Library are thousands of volunteers who are willing to share their life stories with the public. Co-founder Ronnie Abergel said the purpose of the library is to promote diversity and to break down stereotypes. In the beginning, the library featured people who were unemployed, homeless, or depressed, as well as those with disabilities or mental health problems, among others facing various challenges.
Visitors to a human library can check out a human book of their choice. These volunteers, or books, list their life experiences as titles, such as bullied, alcoholic, or homeless, to name just a few. During the 30-minute sessions, visitors listen to the books talk about their lives. They can also ask questions that come to mind during the interactions. In this sense, the stories are published as they are being relayed by the volunteers.
The success of the Human Library is evident in how fast and far the idea has spread around the globe. This popularity indicates that many people are eager to learn directly from those with first-hand experience. It also shows that people are keen on sharing their own stories with others. In doing so, they help people open their minds and rethink the stereotypes they may hold.
Let's go back to the beginning. Our title again, A Library Where Books Are People. Instead of just reading about historical events or psychological conditions, imagine being able to borrow a person who has actually experienced them. Now, this makes me think of a lot of things, also things that I thought of since I've read the whole piece, all of part one, and that is a lot of people just don't read books anymore.
You know, our common friend asked me, maybe, I want to say a week or two ago, what's the last book I read? And I kind of stopped and I was embarrassed because I had to admit that it's been a long time since I've read a full book cover to cover. That's not to say I don't read, because if you guys don't know, I tend to deep dive topics that I get here. It's a way I enjoy learning about new topics. I receive our articles and I try to read as much as possible about any of the topics that we're going to discuss here. But as for the last time I've read an actual book cover to cover, it's been a long time, probably several years since I've read cover to cover.
I think that's very typical of many, many people, if not most people these days. Now, I used to read up to maybe, say, 60, 70 books a year.
Right.
That was back when I was reading paper books more often.
Right.
Then I was able to turn PDF files into text-to-speech so I could listen to any book as an audiobook.
Right.
I started listening to more audiobooks done with text-to-speech. And then in addition, I finally got on the YouTube train and I started watching more YouTube videos. They often would condense a lot of content into some very core main points, and that saved me a lot of time if it was a subject I wasn't deeply interested in.
That's an interesting point, too, because audiobooks, I guess, technically counts. I know some people drive a distinction between listening to the audiobook and actually physically holding the book and reading. I think that's a little unfair, but I'm the kind of person that would happily listen to an audiobook, but I also haven't spent terribly much time doing that either, and I think that's more of me just not being used to having an audiobook on hand, because it is something I'm actually very interested in and have done in the past. I often don't think about it in the moment. So great point. When's the last time you've read a book?
Okay, so I do read a paper book every morning, but it is ancient Chinese.
Right.
That's paper, and I'm making notes on it in pencil and things. That's one thing, because it's not that easy to do. I don't have that edition available in a PDF, so that's something I definitely read on paper every day. But then there's something called Goodreads online. It's a site where you keep a list of the books you read. And so I thought, Last year, I set my goal not at 50 books, not at 30 books, but at 10. And I exceeded my goal, but that was not so many books because I do the same thing that you do. I deep dive into things online. So this year, the question came along again, how many books are you going to read this year? I set it at 10 again, and I thought, well, I should kind of make it a goal to read more actual physical books. They're still PDFs usually, and I often use audio in addition, but they are actual books. But I had to consciously make that decision.
That's interesting you bring this point up too, because it's like if you set that goal in your mind, then maybe it allows you to better obtain it. Although, I mean, unless you're dedicated to it, I don't want people to feel bad if they're not reading books. I think that's a good thing. But if you're spending your time doing something productive towards that you value, I think that's good enough.
I agree. Things have changed. Media have changed everything. This was not available back in the days when we only had paper books.
And also, if you're dedicating your free time, instead of reading a novel or reading some type of nonfiction about learning something new in this world, instead you're dedicating your time towards language expansion, which if you're listening to the show, presumably you are. I mean, to be fair, most of the time that I have free time, I'm learning Chinese using this magazine, using Analytical English. So
I have just found a French cartoon that I finally like. You know, I had trouble finding French material to listen to, just ordinary TV series. They speak fast and it really isn't the stuff I need to learn. I found a cartoon that talks about vacuuming the floor and doing the dishes and dusting the furniture. Those are the things I need to learn how to say in conversation. If you find the right material, man, you really should be working with that. Use the echo method. Listen and repeat with it 10 or 15 minutes a day. It really, really helps. So that's a really good use of the media.
Completely agree.
Right. Okay, so now for those of us who maybe don't read actual physical books so often, there is something else you have to choose from besides just going online and watching a YouTube or digging into an article online, and that is you can talk to an actual human. And this brings me back to the second thing that I was thinking of. You know, first thing was that people aren't reading so many physical books anymore. The second thing is because we are now doing so much stuff online, and we talk about this another time in the month in another lesson about people being online so much they no longer have enough human connection.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't just mean a lover, finding a boyfriend or girlfriend. It does not just mean meeting with a very, very close friend. Just social context, meeting another person face to face, and even going to the store and buying something and paying for it. You know, a lot of people are ordering things online. You're not even doing that. So you can go through a whole day without going out the door. You have not connected with a real physical human all day. And man, you will feel it inside when that happens.
I think the way you approach others is different too online. I think that social media has demonstrated that without that face-to-face contact, if you disagree with a person or they are different than you or they have a disability or they are just politically aligned differently than you, that you're more willing to attack them on social media versus the way you would deal with them face to face. And that's kind of getting into what we're talking about here, that we have these people that if you're constantly just forever online and you're not discussing openly with a person and you're doing it behind a computer screen, you may say things you would never dare say to their face because there would be repercussions.
There's sometimes we may think that this body of flesh we have is kind of superfluous because everything we're doing with our senses and our brain. We don't even really need this body very much because we're not walking around meeting another person. But then you find out when you do meet with another person, you kind of feel, oh, thank goodness, I finally connected with another human. Even if it's just a very casual conversation that lasted 2 minutes. We need other people, person to person. So this now is addressing that need. You're talking with another person to their face using our physical bodies. That's a big deal. So our next sentence, that is the concept behind the Human Library. That's a pretty easy sentence. This is the name of the project, Human Library. The concept is the idea. Created in 2000 by Ronnie Abergel, his brother Danny, and 2 colleagues, the Human Library has since spread from its origin in Copenhagen, Denmark, to more than 80 other countries. So this really fulfilled a need, and so it caught fire and spread to many other countries.
It's interesting because most of these other human libraries are not permanent, like buildings or structures, but they often happen as events at festivals. And so they will have like a booth or an area, and then they will have people sign up in advance. And so there are opportunities in many countries, for one of these just to pop up for a short amount of time, you get to deep dive into a topic that maybe you have no real connection with, but you want to know more about those intimate experiences of what it's like to live with a certain condition or some kind of past that you may not personally be familiar with.
And I think that is at the root, I'm speaking for the U.S. now, of a lot of our political problems, is we are just not connecting with, as you were saying, people who are a little different from us.
This is a little bit of a self-selecting problem, too, I think we'll see when we see. It's like people that are interested in just talking to others with disabilities or that's very different than me. You may be in a self-selecting audience. And so as we read more, keep that idea in mind that you may be, if you're interested in the human library, you may be predispositioned to already being okay with people that are different than you.
I'm going to throw in something that just happened recently that relates to Taiwan. And that is, we know the problem of people staying in their own bubble in the U.S. But in Taiwan, you know that whenever you speak Chinese in Taiwan, people will say, "Oh, your Chinese is so good. How long have you been in Taiwan?" They ask us those questions. Have you noticed that it's changed in the last 4 years or so?
It's changed. So I've been in Taiwan 20 years, and it has changed a lot in those 20 years, and I agree. People today, I assumed I racked it up to my Chinese actually being better than it used to be, and people would just criticize my Chinese.
In the past or now?
No. They used to always so friendly about my Chinese.
Yeah.
And now it's that tone was wrong. It should be fourth tone, not first tone. And they'll criticize my Chinese. And I took that as,
they must
respect my Chinese.
That's a good sign. And that means that their attitude has changed.
Yes.
So I will say what happened to me and also what happened to someone else who I just met recently. So for me, I get tired of that every day.
Okay.
I mean, I know they have good intentions and they're being sweet and showing interest, but I hear it every time I go out. And it says, "Oh, your Chinese is so good. How long have you been?" Every day. And the reason we don't like it so much is because it's treating us as others, as outsiders. And I don't like that feeling of always being an outsider. I've been living here longer than you, lady.
Yeah.
So now I've noticed in the past, say, 4 years, they don't do it anymore. I go and I pay, and they ask me in Chinese, "Do you need to register this online?"
And they say this in English, or?
I have to say a Chinese word, 载具. What foreigner understands that? That's a hard word.
Yeah.
But they just say it as though, of course, you understand.
Yeah.
They do not say how wonderful your Chinese is, and I think, "Oh, thank you." Finally, I'm just being treated like anybody else. That's all I wanted. And I felt so good. Just don't give me that same old routine. They just treat me like everybody else. That's all I wanted all along. So that's what's happened with me personally. Something else happened with somebody I recently met. He's from India. He's only about, say, 26 years old, and he speaks Chinese quite well. And he said, "It's funny, when I was in the PRC, people were always praising my Chinese. When I come to Taiwan, they don't anymore." And not only that, he said that his only friends are 30 years or older. He said that young people don't even want to engage with him. They're not curious. So this is going back to what you're saying, is staying in our bubble and not learning about people who are different from us. I wonder if something's happening in Taiwan that young Taiwanese under 30 are less interested in engaging with others who are different.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's not something I have thought about, although I will be thinking about it going forward.
Yeah. So meeting this Indian, his English is very good. His Chinese is quite good. No friends under 30?
Yeah,
What?
that's pretty shocking because at 26, you're still in that middle. You could still have some friends that are younger, just out of college. Maybe not college age typically, I would say. But yeah, you don't all have to be over 30. That seems to suggest something.
I was very surprised.
Okay, let's continue. At the heart of the human library are thousands of volunteers who are willing to share their life stories with the public.
Okay, this tells us what the human library is. A lot of people volunteer. They don't get paid to do it, and they are also willing to share their stories. I know some people do not want to share their stories. I had that experience once with somebody who was selling the big issue on the street.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of them have traumatic backgrounds because people want to give them this job to sell this so they can earn money. And then I got to chatting with him. I said, he said some bad things happened in my youth. I said, what were they? He said, "I don't want to talk about it."
Sure, fair enough. And this is something that I think is a good place to have because some people are not willing to share those very personal and sometimes difficult stories in their lives.
Traumatic.
That's right, traumatic. And so here's a place where those people are willing to talk about that, and you don't have to wander into that kind of dangerous place where they may not want to tell you.
These people are willing.
Let's continue. Co-founder Ronnie Abergel said that the purpose of the library is to promote diversity and to break down stereotypes.
And I think they hit the nail right on the head with that one, because once you have connected with a person in person, you kind of forget about whatever is different about them. You just want to talk.
When we promote diversity, we want to encourage different kinds of people to have voices and opinions in society. Stereotype, you may know just the Chinese. You kind of look at one kind of person and think they're all like that. There are lots of stereotypes about lots of different kinds of people.
You foreigners always do that.
That's right. And Taiwanese will often, maybe the ones in my experience, will have lots of stereotypes about black people. And I have to step in and defend them, say, number one, that's not true. Number two, don't you ever say that in America. People will punch you in the mouth.
That is a hot button issue now.
Please be very careful about it.
Yep.
The word stereotype is a Greek word that means solid print. So when you have a solid print, it doesn't change between copies. So today we use this word meaning that all people that look like this are all the same type in somebody's mind. And that's where we get that word stereotype from.
And having type, just explain the word type, it appears in the Chinese translation. Look at the Chinese, it means the same thing.
All right, let's continue here. In the beginning, the library featured people who were unemployed, homeless, or depressed, as well as those with disabilities or mental health problems, among others facing various challenges.
Now, speaking frankly, those are people that we tend to avoid.
Yes, and I think that it's good that these people have a voice and they want to share their story.
Paragraph 3. Visitors to a human library can check out a human book of their choice. So you get a list of these so-called titles. You pick the one that you want to talk to on that occasion. These volunteers or books list their life experiences as titles, such as bullied, alcoholic, or homeless, to name just a few. Now, these people might scare us if we just meet them out on the street, but if they have actually joined this program, we may find it safe to talk to them about their experiences.
Right. You're in a controlled environment where kind of everyone is. You have certain terms in which you agree to talk, and people can break them off if they want to. And so it's a very safe and open environment. I know me being curious about other kinds of people. I once walked into the dangerous place of not using the right word once, and man, did I get yelled at. Boy, did the person get mad. And I didn't even know I was using the wrong term. And that certainly turned me off from doing that again in the future. I think if people accidentally use the wrong term, don't be afraid to correct them kindly. Don't attack them for it.
You're afraid of stepping on another landmine.
Oh boy, did I step into the landmines. Holy smokes.
You just don't know.
Yes, it was a public forum, got yelled at. It was crazy. It was like, I'm your ally. I'm on your team. Why are you yelling
don't yell at me. People are very sensitive now. During the 30-minute sessions, visitors listen to the books talk about their lives. So you've got 30 minutes with them. It is a set of time, so it can't just drag on and on. When you're done, you're done. So if you're not comfortable, actually there's another alternative if you're not comfortable. But, it's only 30 minutes, and anybody can sit through something for 30 minutes. You would think they're just going to tell you about their lives. They can also ask questions that come to mind during the interactions. So it's going back and forth. You're not just hearing a lecture. You can go back and forth and then ask about things you're curious about. In this sense, the stories are published as they are being relayed by the volunteers. So they're not on paper. They haven't been recorded before. They're publishing now face-to-face with just one person, and that's you.
All right, very briefly, before we begin our final paragraph, pay attention to how Karen read this paragraph. So there were lots of words in quotation. Human book of their choice. So she emphasized that these phrases in quotes that allow your listener to better understand that these are unusual, maybe non-traditional choices for word usage here.
Very often, we just pause when we come to one of these. Some people like to use air quotes, which I think are a little cutesy, and you can't see them anyway. But remember to pause if you see something, especially in double quotes.
The success of the human library is evident in how fast and how far the idea has spread around the globe.
Okay, so it worked. It worked really well. People responded very well.
Is evident in just means it shows how fast. It proves, it gives evidence. This popularity indicates that many people are eager to learn directly from those with first-hand experience.
When you have the opportunity in this controlled environment, when push comes to shove, I go, yeah, I'm kind of curious.
There are always many interesting details that people can give you when they have first-hand experience that you would otherwise never know if you didn't do it yourself.
A personal experience, I have often heard people making comments about gay people or comments about Jewish people. And so it's easy to build up a stereotype just from what you hear other people say. But as it happens, I have many, many Jewish friends and many, many gay friends. When I interact with them, my thought is I do not have time to pay attention to whether you are Jewish or whether you are gay. I just enjoy your friendship, and that's the end of it. And that's what face-to-face interactions do.
It also shows that people are keen on sharing their own stories with others. In doing so, they help people open their minds and rethink the stereotypes they may hold.
And man, this could help save the world.
Wonderful.
Save our political situation.
Just talk with others. Usually you'll find they're not as irrational and crazy as you may think. Although those people do exist.
They exist, but they exist among people who are just like you as well. So this is a hugely good idea. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. Make sure you tune in then. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.